Do you believe in a God?
Uh, sure. So I think that what we call a God, so if you look at like a person has like layers, right? So if I ask like, who is Stephen? Stephen has a body. So there's a certain level of Stephen that is a physical form. There's a certain level of Stephen that is a bank account. There's a certain level of Stephen that is a brand. Which one of those is really Stephen? They're all really Stephen. So I think there is something at the resolution that people would call a God that does exist.
So you think there's a higher power that is somewhat intentional?
Yes.
Obviously, the question becomes what created that?
So this is what's really interesting. In the West, we think of time as linear. So if you ask a yogi, he'll say time is circular. So what's the first season?
Spring?
I'm confused, but doesn't winter come before spring? So is winter the first season?
I see what you mean.
Right? So we have this conception that time moves linearly. But there are a lot of conceptions of time that are quite circular. Mm-hmm. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? So I think that there's a circularity to time, which there's a very like simple argument against, which is that we cannot move backward in time, right? Like, so time seems like the sand in the hourglass only goes one way.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm not an expert in physics, so I wouldn't make an argument of this based on physics.
But I just want to know what your intuition tells you.
It's not, so experience, right? So I think when you experience certain states of meditation, you have experiences of things outside of the normative reality. Now, you can also make a biological reductionist argument that those are just illusions, hallucinations created by neurons. I don't think that that's true.
What specifically are you referring to that you've experienced?
I don't talk about it. You can ask me a more specific question, and then maybe I can say something. But
what is the right question to ask you?
So I'll try to explain. So this is going to get weird, okay? So I realized recently that I used to value credibility over truth. You understand credibility and truth are two fundamentally different things? So credibility is saying something that is believable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So believability depends on you, not on me.
Yeah.
So what I realized recently is that credibility is about changing your language to fit the ignorance of the audience, like literally. So I was thinking about this recently in my own midlife crisis. And I was like, what am I here to do? Am I here to be famous and successful? If so, then I should be credible. But if I want to speak the truth, then I need to allow my brand or whatever the fuck it is to like fall apart and be like not credible for people to think that I'm an idiot. And I think that is more important, right? Because that's ego. Like people can think I'm dumb. I would rather speak the truth than be credible in this moment and in some limited ways. That's number one. So I acknowledge that what I'm about to say doesn't make sense. And I think if you want to understand this, you have to experience it. And we'll explain why in a second. So if you look at your existence in the world, you have a body, you have a mind, but then you have this other thing, which I think science sort of like acknowledge. We sort of acknowledge, we don't really know what it is, but the capacity for experience. We have this subjective part of you, right? So I can see objectively what you are, but you have an element of subjectivity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah.
How do I know?
You don't?
Do I think?
I don't know. I assume so.
Exactly, right? It's kind of weird. So even when we're like scientists and we say anxiety comes from the amygdala, it's kind of, we're doing something really, really sneaky. We don't know that anxiety comes from the amygdala. We can measure blood flow in the amygdala. We can measure electrical activity using an EEG. How do we know that anxiety comes from the amygdala? Because we ask a human being, hey, when there's blood flow going over here in this fMRI, what are you feeling? I'm feeling anxious. So there is a level of human existence that is subjective. You with me?
Yeah.
So what science has done is we developed telescopes and microscopes to take our physical eyes and extend them. So my physical eyes, with the baseline sensory organs, I can perceive certain things and I cannot perceive other things. But if I develop an instrument, I can see a star. If I develop an instrument, I can see a bacteria. So I'm taking my natural physical ability and I am enhancing it with technology. With me?
Mm-hmm.
Meditation is doing that for your subjectivity. So if I take like the material realm, which is observable, objective, and I use a telescope and I use a microscope, I can go further than where I started. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So now the question is, for the subjective realm, can you go further in the opposite direction? And when you do that through meditation, you will discover things that are not available to the basic subjective experience. So like with the naked eye, you can't see a bacteria, but if you use this instrument, you can see it. There's basically a spiritual equivalent, a subjective equivalent of a microscope and a telescope that allow you to perceive things using your baseline subjective experience that are not perceivable by normal means. That doesn't mean that they're supernatural. We call them supernatural, but I think this is all reducible to science. We just haven't figured it out yet. I think that I have seen enough stuff through personal experiences, through the clinical value of working on these things, where I think like some of this stuff is real.
Earlier when I asked you about your experience, you said, I don't talk about it.
Yes.
Which is extremely rare for you to say, because
Yes.
you talk about everything, it seems. Like
Yes.
pretty much most things. I mean, there's not a
Yes.
question I've ever asked you where you said I don't talk about it.
Yes.
So I'm curious as to why you don't talk about it.
2 or 3 reasons. One is that it depletes Shakti immensely. It depletes energy. So as you accumulate spiritual energy, there are certain practices that you can do, including helping people, that will deplete your energy. Second thing is, anytime I talk about it, I think it induces a subtle form of ego, right? So it's like, oh, I've been to the other side. Even like talking about not talking about it. So that's why like I won't show up on a podcast and be like, oh, like I've had all these experiences that I'm not going to tell you about. It's real, but oh, by the way. So I think there's a subtle form of ego that I really wrestle with. And I've just learned, so there are 1 or 2 times in my life where I've shared these experiences and it wipes away like my meditative progress for like 5 years. So it'll take me years of practice to get back to having those experiences. And I think I've also been told by my teachers, and now I'm understanding. I didn't understand back when they told me, but I think it's not, and there's other reasons too. So it creates expectations. It creates an imagination. The moment that there's an expectation in the mind will reproduce that experience.
Obviously, the viewer is thinking, listen, Dr. K, I trust you, and you're suggesting you've been to the other side and seen something, and I haven't been there, but that knowledge that you have might help me make more informed choices of my life. So tell me what you experience.
Yes and no. So let's understand, okay? So any help that I can give, I'm going to give. So like my understanding of this mass extinction event that is happening right now is like a spiritual sense. And I think some people may resonate with that and some people may not. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, if I can help you, I will. I don't think this is going to help you. I think all it's going to do is it's going to create ego. It's going to create an aura around me. I don't want that. It's going to create people hunting for this, which will inhibit it. The more I say, the harder it will be for it to help you. So the best thing to do is, if you're interested in this stuff, I mean, like literally, like what are we talking about here? Let's just stop and think about this. This is crazy. This guy is saying there's stuff after death. There's like these beings out there, right? Like this is wild. This is dumb. This is unbelievable. Exactly. So if you really want to know, and this is what I love about this work, this is the reason I say it. One of the great tragedies of the world today is that it's explored. We know what's behind every nook and cranny. We've mapped the earth. There's no exploration. Maybe deep sea is what's left. Space is what's left. It's so exciting to explore. But most human beings on the planet do not have the opportunity to explore the frontiers of the universe, right? The known universe. The cool thing is that, I don't know if this is going to make sense. In the realm of subjectivity, no one can explore for you. You have to do the exploration yourself. And if you are hungry to be in Magellan's shoes, if you're hungry to be an astronaut and explore something that no one has ever seen before, then you should meditate. And I'm a crazy person. Like, sure, am I a Harvard Medical School trained psychiatrist? Yes. But like, I could be a crazy person. I had some experiences. I maybe joined a cult and like that. Like, you can't trust me. Exactly. So don't trust me. You go see for yourself, right? Go and meditate. Take a moment to sit, not a moment, take a year, take a decade. to sit and look at that subjective experience of self and see how far you can take it. Try to get rid of all of the anchors of the material realm. If you've got an itch, you need to not focus on that. Just focus your attention fully inward. It's not a process of evolution, it's a process of involution. Put all of your attention, all of your sensory input. So if I close my eyes, what I hear is louder, right? If I smell and close my eyes, I smell something more intensely. Remove all of your sensory perceptions, and all you're left with is attention, and put it inward. If you do that, you'll discover things if you practice consistently enough. And this is why it's so hard. This is why it's so unbelievable for people. I mean, the time scale that we're talking about is years, if not decades. So if you do like solid, esoteric, spiritual practice for years and decades, hopefully it'll happen to you. Maybe it won't. I haven't figured that out.
What about if I do some magic mushrooms or some ketamine instead?
So then you'll get some experiences, right? But you won't control what those experiences are. What are those experiences? Are they real? Are they not real? Like, we're not sure.
Do you think more people should try, especially people that are suffering from treatment-resistant depression or other things, or struggling in their lives, should try things like psilocybin, which is the active compound in magic mushrooms?
Generally speaking, no. And there's a really important reason for that. So all these things, so the number of people who have been, that I've seen in my office, who have been messed up by psychedelics far outweighs the number of people who've been helped.
Really?
Yes. So LSD, like we know this, right? There's bad trips with LSD. It lives in your spine. You have like LSD flashbacks. I've seen PTSD from trips. I've seen new anxiety disorders, panic disorders from psychedelic substances induced. So these are people that'll come to me like, I'm 32 years old. I was fine for my whole life. 6 months ago, I used psychedelics, and now like I'm having panic attacks. Here's the key thing to understand. Psychedelics, what we know scientifically, forget about whether the beings exist or not, whatever, Dr. K's crazy. What we know is that they induce neuroplasticity. Now, here's the problem. Neuroplasticity means my brain is in edit mode, okay? Which means that if you edit it in the wrong way, you'll mess up your brain. So what we know is that, this is what's really interesting, if we look at the therapeutic effects of psychedelics, set and setting matter a lot. You need to have like people with you who can like shepherd you through the journey, because if you just do it on your own, you'll potentially get worse. All of those negative whatever emotions or whatever with the psychedelic experience and neuroplasticity, you'll sometimes get people will call it, I forget, it's called the heroic dose, right? So there's some guy who kind of coined that term. So a super high dose, which will activate your nervous system in a potentially traumatic way. So if you look at the history of psychedelics, the way that they've been used, you're helped by like a shaman.
Yeah.
Right? So there's someone who knows how to like do it in a way that is positive. And unfortunately, what I've seen is I've had plenty of patients who will like experiment with it when they're feeling really bad because they hear it as healing. But it just messes them up even more, because now they're just going in, they're editing, they have a traumatic experience, some demon is there, it's hounding them, they can't escape, they like wake up from the trip and they're like the demon is like there when they close their eyes and like all kinds of weird stuff. So I think it has to be done in the right way, which the studies also support. That psychedelic, it's not you just take psilocybin and you're healed. What happens is you'll have a trial that has 13 weeks of therapy with 2 doses of psychedelics in the middle. And one really important part is after the psychedelic, the therapist will talk to you about integrating what you learned into your life. Now that you've had this experience of a vastness of self and you feel connected with other people, what are you going to do about this divorce that you're going through? So I think there's elements that make it clinically useful. There are elements that can heal, but you need shepherding. I think there's a lot of data to support that.
So you're pro psychedelics, but in the context where it's guided with a trained professional and the set and setting is controlled.
I would say that I am cautiously optimistic about psychedelics. And if we want to talk about their benefits, we need to pay attention to the way in which the trials are conducted and the traditions in which they're conducted.
I want to go back up to the top of the river here, to where we were before we took this turn, and we were talking about the importance of cultivating a why, so that you can overcome an addictive behavior. And I actually think this is super important because our whys seem to run our life. They seem to really be actually what we refer to as discipline. I think it's, people think of like, I am disciplined, I'm not disciplined. But actually it's, for me in my life anyway, it's when I have a really, really strong why, then I make the decision in hindsight I wanted to make. So like going to the gym is an easy example. Going to the gym requires time. It's not always super comfortable. I don't love the running machine, but there's this overarching why that gets me there and gets me to do it. So I wanted to pause and reflect is like, is that accurate? But also, how does one go about cultivating a why? If it really is that important.
I think yes is the short answer. Why is incredibly important. And I lean on Eastern systems of cultivation because if you look at the difference between a yogi and a therapist does something to you. Our system of psychology is designed with like a patient that I therapize, right? They have to do some work on their own. But like Freud was doing the analysis in the same way that a surgeon is doing the surgery. So in the West, we have this idea that like, I'm trained, I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna therapize you. So if you wanna DIY it, do it yourself. That's where the Eastern traditions come in because no one was ever meditating for the Buddha, right? The Buddha was like, I'm gonna teach you something, you're gonna do it yourself. So I think the cultivation of, if you wanna do stuff on your own, the spiritual traditions, and I think that's why they're so powerful because like, it's a DIY system. A yogi was working by themselves. They weren't working with anybody else. So they get taught things and then you do it yourself. So I would use the word dharma. So dharma is the Sanskrit word for duty. And cultivating dharma in your life is what I would correlate with a why. And the reason is exactly kind of what you described, is that there are some things in life that are painful, but we choose to do them. And we have to be a little bit careful because if we're delaying gratification, then we're still giving in to desire, right? It's just like my desire for $10 instead of $1 means that I'm gonna work 2 days and then I'm gonna get $10. But it's still greed that's driving us. So the thing about dharma or duty is it allows us to choose hard things. So the analogy that I use is if someone is like pointing a gun at me, I'm gonna run away from it. Gun means death, it means disability, it means all kinds of stuff. If someone points a gun at my kid, I'm stepping into that path, no question, no doubt. And it makes sense to everybody, right? Gun bad, but when doing dharma, gun is easy. Like I'll take that gun if a bullet leaves that gun, I want it to hit me. And it's that simple that once you discover what your dharma is, then all of the difficult things in life become easy. The things that, if you're chasing fundamentally greed, I want something, I want money, but I don't want to work. Why is that such a problem, right? Because I'm always chasing my own betterment. So I want money because I want this. But then when I start to work, it feels bad. So I want to go home. So I'm always being pulled by my wants, But if you ask me, do I want the gun? Do I want to step into the path of the gun? No, absolutely not. I want to run away from the gun. But dharma allows me to do the things that I don't want to do. It activates a different circuit that allows me to embrace difficulty. So that's what the why is. Now, go ahead.
You know what I'm going to say, which is like, how do I cultivate dharma?
Excellent. The reason dharma is hard to cultivate is because we don't know what we want. Instead, we know what the world tells us to want. It's like if you think about the things that you want, how did you learn that you want those things? Because you saw somebody else doing it.
Like an advert. I saw the waffle or the Oreos in an advert. And
absolutely, right? That's why advertising is an industry. Because we've figured out as human beings that I can control your wants. So when I work with like young men, used to be young women, it's slightly different, but this was a bigger issue for, I think, women maybe 10 years ago. Somehow it's gotten better. But for young men right now, if I ask them what they want what they see. Also true of women. It's balancing some. But like, I want to be like, I'm gonna start a podcast. I'm gonna be like Steven. I'm gonna get ripped. I'm gonna buy a house. I'm gonna get a girlfriend. I want this. I want. None of those voices are coming from you. They're not dharma. So the first thing that you have to do is evacuate anything that you want that came from outside of you.
sometimes it's hard to tell where it came from, no? Because it almost feels on the surface, like, because when you just said then, I want a house, I'm like, fuck, do I actually want that house, or is the reason I want that house because—
Yes, so this is the problem, is that when we want something from the outside, we internalize it, right? So this is like, if you say you should do something, right? Everyone in the world is struggling with what they should do. That's not what you want. Otherwise, you would use the word want. So should is externalized expectations that we then internalize. Even a lot of our desires are of those kinds of qualities. So it didn't come from you. You weren't sitting there still on a mountaintop and be like, I want that house. And then the question, so first thing you have to do is, if you like saw someone getting it and you wanted it, that's not really what you want. But what you will find is that that triggered something deeper within you. So that what you saw someone else, I don't know if this kind of makes sense, but like the things that we gravitate towards connect to what we really want, but it's a version of it. So when I see like, a sexy dude with a sexy girl and I say, I want that, that's what I think I want. And this is the whole problem, is I worked with tons of people who've gotten what they wanted, chased these things, and were still unhappy. You get the first girl, and then you need the second, and then you need the third, and it's like, what are you even chasing here? That's when you get to the psychological root of like, okay, what I want is to feel loved. I want to feel secure. And this is where people get into a lot of trouble, because if I want to feel loved and I craft myself into something that cannot be denied, I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm handsome, and then someone chooses to love me, then I'm fucked. Because who do they love? Do they love this crafted version of me, or do they love the loser me? I don't know. And then their marriage has all kinds of problems. So the external desires that you have will, if you follow them within yourself, you really ask yourself, what about this do I want? Why do I want this? What is the thing that is hungry within me? Because oftentimes, even when you get the girl, you're resentful towards her. You're like, you rejected me when I was a loser, but now you want to date? Okay, let's go. Let's have a transactional relationship where I'm going to get laid and I'm going to ghost you.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.